May 27. It's Tuesday. And everything seems to be on a fiery start. The most notable is with one of the Supreme Court statements made. They're telling Trump that the Supreme Court doesn't intend to tell the chief executive how to run or how to manage independent agencies, which could mean that there we go. Continue. Sorry for that interruption. Facebook just disappeared. I don't know. I think I'm going to turn off Facebook. And so for all of you that are listening with Facebook, of course you can't hear me now because you just got bombed out by Facebook. There's something astray of Facebook Live because after about a minute or two, they bomb out, even though I have plenty of bandwidth. Let me check my bandwidth. I can check it right now. Oh yeah, it's quick. The ping is relatively quick at 21 milliseconds. That's a decent ping. Even a better ping. Ping is like, you know, when you hear when you watch war movies and you hear the submarine, just one ping only. Or a ping, you hear the bing bing. That's a ping. And my station here sends out a ping across the internet, and then it bounces back with a responding ping. And ping ping. And the question is, how long does it take the ping to get to the backbone of the web? And the answer to that question today is 21 milliseconds. A good ping is like 17 milliseconds. I think that's as fast as I've ever seen. You know, when you do the speed test on how fast your internet connection is working. And as of this morning at 9:08 a.m., speed test indicated a 21 millisecond ping and a 3 millisecond jitter. Jitter is like the waves in the ocean. The very low waves. A 3 millisecond jitter is probably as good as you can hope for. The download speed was 288 megabits per second. And the upload speed, which is what I'm interested in, because we're uploading to YouTube Live, is 54.8 megabits per second. Getting my tongue tied here with all these millis and macros and what do you call it? 25 megabits per second up and 288 megabits per second download speed, which is what you get when you're browsing the web and looking at things and downloading pictures. And so at 28 megabits per second, you divide that by 8. Do I really have to? 288 divided by 8. That's 4 megabits per second, megabytes per second. Okay, 4 megabytes per second equals 288 megabits per second. 8 bits to a byte. Just to give you an idea. So if you got 12 megabyte picture, it's going to take 3 seconds for it to download. It's that simple. Yeah. All right, let's get rid of that. Let's get back where we were. We have that, and we have that. There we go. So let me just get rid of that. We're going to add back in that. There we go. So now we can see this. Yeah, I'll save this on the side here. You can see the time elapse. Yeah, in case you're interested. To 1/10 of a second. That's what all those quick numbers is. 10 counts per second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's better than that clock to the tenths of a second. Yeah, and you can see over here, up here, it's 9:13 a.m. and 15 seconds, 18 seconds, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah. So I'm anxious to see on what happened with SpaceX's let's go SpaceX SPACEX test 9. It'd be nice if I had an S in front of SpaceX. SpaceX Mars. Test 9 at 90. Come on. Let's see what happened. How do we find out? Twitter, SpaceX. Come on, I want more than that. There's got to be more than that. Associated Press has to have stuff. So here's a list of things. YouTube. Oh boy. YouTube prepares for launch. Countdown. Watch live spaceship mission. Critical 9th. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. 17 hours ago. Yeah. Let's see what this shows us. Get rid of the chat. Guess I can't get rid of everything. Oh, it's today, you dummy. Oh yeah, that's right. It's today. It's like at 5:30 or something. 5:30 or 6:30. So I guess that previous search where it says countdown. Let's try that one. Yeah, countdown. Yeah, you can't even. It's kind of hazy over there. All right, let's. Oh boy. How do I get back to? All right, let's try that again. There we go. Watch live. That's YouTube. Here's a SpaceX one. 6:30 Central Time. So that means 7:30 Eastern Time. I'm going through. You can see the news things, I hope. A little truncation there. Hey, this is important stuff. 10 million pounds of fuel. 10 million pounds of fuel. Ouch. Into a 500,000 pound, thing that catches in the claws. It's I did a calculation. It's 500,000 pound when that sucker lands empty, or almost empty, because it had almost fuel in there. Critical launch date for Starship Flight 9. Ooh, revealed. Yeah, right. Okay. The Independent, there's ABC, Space Flight Now, Corpus Christi Caller Times, 10 minutes ago. Oh, hell, let's go there. Let's see what they got. They got, all right, 7:30 Eastern. Okay. Yeah, no. No pictures. I mean, we can see this, which, do we do spaceflight now? Let's go ahead and go there. Live coverage. There it is. It looks like a toy, doesn't it? It looks like a toy, something that's like 14 inches tall. No. That is the equivalent of a 40-story office building on the podium thingy, which looks like another 20 feet high or more. I think that little kickstand-looking thing, which is like solid concrete and iron, and oh my God, blast-proof. They don't really have a flame deflector, it just like it blows wherever it can, which I don't think is a good idea. They would have a flame deflector, like they have at Pad 39A, where all the flame goes like underground and then whoosh, shoots out. So that's the way. And then, of course, once it actually lifts off, then the exhaust fumes go everywhere. But at least for that first 6 seconds, while all the engines are lighting up and you got sufficient amount of thrust, then this doodad in the middle that it's sitting on has, bolts all the way around, these big ratchet arms. I mean, everything here is big. You just don't realize it's big. If you were standing in the bottom, you'd be a little speck. Like that little white speck right there. That's, yeah. That's a light coming out of a building. But just the size of that speck will give you an idea how big you'd be standing next to that monstrous, amount of concrete and iron, and oh my. They reinforced it big time, because the first couple of test flights, it was like an explosion from the ground, and you had concrete and shit flowing in every direction. And the FAA and this and that and every 3 alphabet letters in the alphabet, they all, inspected the site, and oh my God, it was such a rigmarole. Of course, none of these people know what the hell they're talking about, because this is all cutting edge stuff, cutting edge stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cutting edge. The only people that understand it really are the SpaceX engineers. So it's pretty much, I hate to say it, but a rollover by the FAA, because they're going to tell SpaceX what the hell they're doing. Lots of luck on that. They don't know what the hell. They're just like, they're hanging on by their fingernails to keep up with these people. Because, you've got the best minds in the world that Elon has had the ability to accumulate because of his, the fact he's doing all this stuff. Everyone else is talking about it, and this guy is actually doing it. So I guess I'll have to do a little print screen of that just to remind myself in case we go to YouTube. YouTube Live. YouTube Live is pretty good. These folks are on the spot. There's Starship 9, and this is SFN, Spaceflight Now. Watch on YouTube. All right, let's do that. We're watching on YouTube. Notifications is on. Is anything happening? Live in 8 hours. Okay. 8 hours. 17. That's 5. So in 5:30. Oh, there it is. 5:30 p.m. They're going to come on the air, which is 2 hours. 5:30 p.m. Eastern. See, they don't say, because it's Central Time Zone where this sucker is. So starting around 5:30 p.m., you can start tuning in to these various enterprises that deal with notification is on, so I'm going to get a notice. I don't know where I'm getting a notice, for this thing to take off. There are 33 Raptor engines, which each engine is like 270,000 pounds of thrust. Millions, billions, trillions. So you take 237,000 pounds of thrust. Oh, Lordy. All right, I guess we'll have to go to our trusty calculator, which you can see. 275,000 pounds of thrust. And we're going to multiply that by 33 and find out how many millions and billions and 9 million pounds of thrust. Yeah. 9,075,000 pounds of thrust. I think it's more than that. Let's take 288 times 33. That's 9.5 million pounds of thrust. I think it's something like that. He's pushing the chamber, the actual ignition chamber, where the liquid oxygen and the liquid methane, I'm going to think of what the fuel is, come together in the form of a liquid gaseous, probably gas, under unbelievable pressure, and it gets ignited, and and more of this stuff is pumped in under a incredible high pressure. 300 bar is the pressures in the blasting chamber, or whatever they call, the ignition chamber, the chamber, which is right next to the nozzles. If you look at a Raptor engine, let's try it. R-A-P-T-U-R-E, Raptor engine. Oh, gosh, I can't spell with a Raptor ready. Raptor. I guess I need to do SpaceX, S-P-A-C-E-X. There we go. Let's see what that produces. I know, I'm always such a pushy guy on the internet. Let's see, I know what it should look like. Rocket engines. All right, we'll go. Oh yeah, look at that. No, I don't like any of that. Let's see. That's the Merlin engine. We want the Raptor engine. Kerosene based, no. That's the Merlin engine. Let's see, liquid rocket engines. Merlin, Draco, Falcon Heavy, Dragon. We're going through the history. We don't want kerosene based. We want liquid methane based. There we go. Methalox. That is liquid methane and LOX. Liquid oxygen. LOX. That's what the last. So the methane. There you go. See. No, I can't reverse pinch these. That's a Raptor engine test. I mean, it's like a controlled explosion. It's about 300 bar. Oh, what? 2.9 megatons of vacuum thrust. That means out in the vacuum of space. 2.9 megatons, or 661,000 pounds of thrust. That's a lot of push for a P word. That's probably driving you crazy. Oh, yeah. Well, I wanted to... All right, there's... I'm not happy with that search. Let's go back and look at images. Yeah, this is... I mean, these guys manufacture engines like crazy. See, here's a... This is laying out on the floor. A bunch of Raptor engines. See, now these are older ones. You see all the spaghetti stuff on top of each? That has been consolidated into looking... where's the Raptor? There we go. This is what I wanted. There's the Raptor 1 engine on the left. And on the right is the Raptor 2 engine. Quite a difference, huh? And they got rid of all that stuff. All that stuff is capable of breaking down. The best part is no part. When you're in the factory business of making things. And there's an underneath a camera looking straight up into the bottom of the super heavy SpaceX Mars booster. Look at that. 2, 4, 6, 8. You got 9 engines in the middle, wrapped by 23 engines all the way on the outside. Or, 9 engines. Wrapped by the 9 has been expanded to 13. So what the heck? That's an old picture. Sorry to say. Now they have 3 engines wrapped by 10. Okay. Instead of 1 engine wrapped around by 9, they've expanded that rim so that you got 3 engines in the middle like a little triangle. And then there are 10 engines surrounding it. Expand that ring a little bit. Wrapped, and the 23 around the edge is the same. So, or, darn it, 23, 10 is 33, I guess it's like 34 engines then. 10 plus, yeah. So they're always, I think they've settled on, the 3 wrapped by 10, wrapped by 23. That's 34 engines in round numbers. Now the 3 are on, they have these huge hydraulic things that can swing those engines around in a fairly decent, they're on gimbals. So these engines can, these are big suckers. They're like 8 feet tall. So, you're going to stand up next to it. Yeah, you'd be looking straight into the middle of that top part. An 8 foot tall person, you'd be looking right smack. That would be about as, you'd be looking straight at the top of this image right here. Yeah, because it's that tall. Yeah, it's 2 feet taller than you. If you're 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", yeah, it's 8 feet tall. If you're 5 feet tall, there's 3 feet you'd have to be looking up. So you'd be looking straight into one of those 3, probably that third ring of fire. Yeah, these hot gases fly around and this output right here goes right into a turbine, which turns the pump. It pumps the fuel in the blasting chamber, which is, is right in there behind all that stuff. And it's like 300 bar. So when things explode, they explode right from the middle here. Right? Yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah. There's one of these pictures that shows all 3. There's 3 versions of Raptor. And we need to put SpaceX up front here. SpaceX. Let's try that one. There we go. Now I'm going to look at images. You see on top here the search. It says AI mode, all, and images. We're going to do images. This is the picture I wanted to show you. Come on, baby. There we go. That's it. Whoops. Can you freaking believe it? The touch screens are so... Let's try this one. See, the engines are like... It's like... save the photos. The engine's sitting outside a building. You see, it's so much cleaner when I show you all 3 of There we go. Save to photos. I'm coming back for you. Not to worry. I want to show you one of these sitting in the back of a truck. If it's possible. That's a nice picture if I can get it. Save to photos. All right. This is the new configuration underneath. Save that to photos. All right. So now we're going to go to photos and look at the. So here, this is the picture I wanted to show you. See, Raptor 1. It's captioned on top there. There we go. See, Raptor 1 is on the very left. Raptor 2 is in the middle. And whenever this picture was, you got some red hoses in there, some newly added hoses. But look at all the crap that's been pulled away. Some parts you can see are consistent between the two images. And then look at this one, the Raptor 3 engine. This is, look at the difference between one and, well, you can see. But look at number 1 there. And you can see the common, this diagonal hose. That's the output from the pressurized part of the engine, then feeds back into this turbine, which then pumps the fuel. I mean, it is so close to exploding itself. It's about as, the pressures have been adjusted to the maximum possible amount of fuel that comes down through the top in there. And the liquid oxygen comes in from the side, behind here, which you can't see. And they're all sitting on pallets. Yeah, they're 4 foot by 4 foot pallets probably. Yeah, because this sucker is 8 feet tall. Yep, that's a big bell. Yeah. That's the vacuum engine bell. In other words, where you'll see 3 of those on the bottom end of the SpaceX spaceship. The Mars spaceship, which is sitting on top of the booster, which has the 33 engines. There you go, see? 3 surrounded by 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3 surrounded by 10. Surrounded by 22 or 23 engines. Must I count them? I really don't want to. All right, I'm going to start with that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 engines. 3 surrounded by 10, surrounded by 20. Makes 33 engines. 23 plus 10 is, yeah, 33. Be there or be square. There you go. 30. That's how they get the 33 engines. And it could be that the 10 are on minimal amount of gimbaling. So that's why there's like so much space between the engine and the inside of the ring and the outside and where the other 20 are. And the 3 in the middle, they have even a much more amount of gimbaling to steer this big sucker. Particularly these 10 fire when it's falling back from space, when it's going to make a landing, in the Gulf of America, as Trump likes to call it. There you go. There's a little, like a three-dimensional view of this. That's even a different configuration than what we got now, because that looks like 5 surrounded by 10 surrounded by 20. Do we have a no, that's when I got it. I was trying to figure out when. I guess I'd have to go back. I don't know. I think this is the configuration we're doing with the 33 engines. This is an even different arrangement, where you got 5 engines under real serious gimbaling, surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5 surrounded by 10, surrounded by 20. So that'd be 35 engines, where they added 2 more. So the question is, are they flying this one? Or is this an even newer version of the booster? Yeah. That would be the third. This may be the, when they do test number 10. They just did 9, or excuse me, they're just doing 9 today at 6:30. Boy, you want to watch that one. So much the roar from that engine. If you're like 10 miles away, it'll shake your dishes in your pantry. It vibrates everything above ground. Yeah. If you're standing outside, your whole body will vibrate from the shock wave from this thing taking off is so dramatic. You feel the shock wave first, but you don't hear it, because sound travels at 1,100 in round numbers, 1,100 feet per second. So you can count 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, and if you count to 10, which is probably what you're going to count to, which means you're going to count to more than that, because you're not going to be, it's 5,280. Let's just round down to 5,000. Keep it simple, because we're doing 1,000. So it's just, if it's 5,000 feet in a mile, it's actually 5,280, but let's just round down to 5,000. Okay? And you're not going to be closer than 10 miles away, I don't think. Like if you were taking off in Titusville at pad 39A, you're 10 miles away. When you look at the actual, the map of, I just happen to have one. Yeah, I just happen to have one. Oops, no, that's not it. Okay, where is it? Aerial view of Titusville. That's oh, there it is. There you go. There's Merritt Island. And I'm going to show you a little. I'm just going to put a little arrow, a red arrow, I don't like that. Let's go back. I don't want to say what that looks like. Come on. My fingers are like mud pie here. There we go. Let's try this one. Okay, that arrow right there. I don't like that either. Come on. What's the matter? What's the matter for you? And this touch screen isn't recognizing my fingers. There we go. Let's try it again. Let's try it in yellow. I'm gonna aim it this way. All right. We'll stick with that. That's 39A. I did the expando. See, that's pad 39A, where the moon, ship launched from, and a lot of the space shuttles, I think, launched from there. And a friend of mine has a house right where that red dot is. Well, if you measure that red dot to that yellow arrow, that's 10 miles. I did a little measuring one day, and that's what 10 miles represents. Okay, I'll just say done. So if that, and they're building another space center thing like they're having in Boca Chica, Texas, they're going to have in Titusville, in Merritt Island. They're building it right now. And, from 10 miles away, you can see that stanchion, that holds the rockets. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Now, pad 39A has, which you can't see in this, because we can't expand it enough. But, go back 10 miles each way from that arrow is where you can be on the beach to watch this. These earlier zones up here, it's closed. They got military people, guarding people trying to get closer. Because if it blows, we don't want to lose people. 10 miles away, you're going to get a huge blast, and it may blow out your windows, but it hopefully won't blow you apart. Anyway, that's right in the middle of the screen. You can see the red dot flying right underneath the that's where my friend's house is. That's where the red dot is, right there. It's that red roof. That's the red dot. Right where that red roof is, right there. That's the red dot. 100 Pine Ridge Boulevard, I believe. Yeah, now where did that... is it here? Yeah, there it is. Whew, it's hard to see these things. I've got them. There we go. Come on, let's green that up a little bit. Yeah, sir. Let's take our color temperature thing, and yeah, that's more like it, because you got brown and green. It's not all green. And we can fill in a little more colors that way. And that's about how it looks. If you're going to be flying over that, 10,000 feet up, that's probably a 10,000 foot. If you were in an airplane 10,000 feet above sea level, that's probably how it would look at the cockpit. I I had some pilot training. Took about 7 lessons out of the 10 you would need for your licensing. I never really this guy got his instructor license, and I never asked for him to certify me as a pilot. I could have, because he was a pilot instructor. He got his license one day when we were in our dormitory room, not in classes. And he said, "Hey, Jimmy, I just got my flight instructor's license." He comes marching across the hallway. Our doors were open. Ouch. His door was open and my door was open. We were across the hall from each other. So he comes walking. My room is like Grand Central. Everybody was in and out of my room, because I room with 2 senior classmen, not senior officer, senior classmen basketball players. I was a freshman. One of the players, Bobby Cox, was a sophomore, and one of the players was a junior. So I roomed with these guys for 2 years, when it was a junior and when it was a senior, and Bobby Cox was a sophomore or a junior. Anyway, so they're my roommates. And so because they're college basketball players, we had all kinds of people coming and going, to talk to the players, and the assistant coaches would come by, and so I just left the freaking door open, and people would come in, to knock on the door, and then you open it. Forget it. Just open the door all the way. It's a big 3-foot wide door, 8-foot tall door, and of course the guy that got the pilot instructor license, he lived across the hall. So he opened up his door and he said, "Hey, Jimmy," he yells across the hallway, "I just got my flight instructor license." I said, "Hey, come on over here. What's that? What does that mean?" He said, "I am now capable of training people that want to be pilots. You want to fly with me?" I said, "Hell yeah." He said, "All you got to do is split the cost to fuel up the plane." So I said, "Okay." The wing was above the cockpit. One of those Cessna 150s or something like that, and real safe airplane. A 10-to-1 glide ratio, meaning 1 mile down, 10 miles. For every mile down, you go 10 miles this way. So that was considered very safe. Jet airplanes are 9-to-1 reverse. So every, 9 miles this way is 1 mile this way. So, when you lose your power, you come down fast. Yeah, the glide ratio is real steep in a twin jet, because there's so much power in the jet engines. And of course they fail. The only thing you got is your forward motion, and you try to come in and land without engines, you're going to come in at a very steep angle, almost like flying a shuttle aircraft. Anyway, let's just stick to single engine, Cessna 150s, for example, or 170. I forget what his aircraft is. I'm going to say 150. Anyway, it cost $25 to fill them up. He said, so it'd be like $12.50 each. We fly around, I'll show you how to fly an airplane. I said, hell yeah, let's do it. Crap. You got a nice sunny afternoon, on a Saturday or something when you don't have classes. I said, yeah, let's go out and fly. 12:30, 1 p.m., we drive over to the airport. We're near where I went to school, Union College. And we'd fly out on a Cessna 150, fly through the mountains of southern Virginia and southwestern Kentucky and Tennessee. All 3 states come in together at that one point. The Cumberland Gap area. Anyway, so we'd fly around all over the thing, and he'd take off, and this and that. We get up to about, and of course, you have to file your flight plan with whoever's the control tower in the area. And so he'd fly, he'd draw pictures on a map on what his flight plan is going to be. We'd take off here, we'd fly around here, we come back, we'd fly around this and come around here. No, you can't fly over that Met-a-round. Are you kidding me? That's controlled airspace. Yeah, private pilots, you cannot fly in that area unless you got a specific permit to do it. And when you ask for a permit, they say no. It is that simple. So the best way of you getting aerial views of what this looks like is Google it. You know, this is a picture from space, from a satellite, 44,000 miles over your head. Can you imagine? You got to be 44,000 miles up to take this picture with pretty decent detail from 44,000 miles away. Yeah, the imaging is quite spectacular, you know, and every time they put up a new satellite, they put up better cameras with even better imagers for the most fantastic video replays in probably 8K. I'm sure they're shooting in 8K from the satellites. Which means each picture is like 8 million bytes, you know, an 8 million pixel image. You know, every image going 60 times a second per video. I mean, it's a staggering amount of data. Lots of data. Datum. Yeah. Anyway, 10 miles away. So let's just do a fast calculation. There's 5,000 feet. Well, let's just be. There's 5,280 feet in a mile times 10 equals 52,800 feet. Okay, that's how many feet it is from across the Indian River directly across from pad 39A, which is basically on the beach of the frickin' ocean. Yeah, that body of water is the Atlantic Ocean. Okay? Anyway, so that's 52,800 feet. Now we're going to divide that by 1,040. Oops, too many zeros. It's sound travels at 1,040 feet per second. So we're going to divide the feet per second into the 52,800, and what do you get? Equals 50 seconds. So when you see that sucker taking off, it's 50 seconds before you hear anything. And then all of a sudden you hear this tremendous rumble. You know? Can you imagine? 50 seconds? Is that right? Could that be possible? 5,280 feet in a mile. Right, that's it. Times 10, because it's 10 miles away, that's 52,800 feet. And the sound travels at, maybe it's 1,140 feet per second. Let's try that. Equals 46 seconds. All right, still a lot of seconds. 45 seconds later, you hear the sucker rumble. Woo! And the rumble, it is rumble. So, you know, you're videoing and everything's like cool, and you're watching it go, and all of a sudden, you know, you can see the camera start to shake when the rumble comes 45 seconds into the video. Yeah, okay. I'm just telling you. And they keep you 10 miles away because it's, you know, if you get over here from Titusville, instead of up where River Park Boulevard is, I mean, in theory, you can You could watch it from anything on this side of the Indian Lagoon. You know, the city of Titusville and those beaches, they're all open. You know, so from here to here is probably 9 miles away, or that's 10 miles away, maybe 8.5 miles. So you could get a little bit closer if you were actually in Titusville, as opposed to being south of Titusville. This picture is, west is up, east is down. Usually when you see pictures like this, you'd see north up, but this map is, I did it this way so you could see the surrounding territories on either side of this. Yeah. What happened here? I swiped over my whole control panel, so I can't tell who's where. Yeah, there we go. Remember, we have two different kinds of aspect ratios there. If I crop cameras again, if I crop split again, there you go. See, now you see a full picture of that, and a full picture of my whole setup here. Now it should be down just a little bit. There we go. And you can see the edge of my microphone, and this is like a sideways picture of Jimmy. I'm actually over here. If I were to, but then when I go to this other view, which I kind of like better, because you've got a lot of black. See all this black in the middle, and black on the bottom, and black on top, and all that's surrounded by black. So we're going to crop split again, and now the whole frame is full of video. And of course I have to turn this back a little bit because we want to be able to see the time in that upper right. Yeah, see the time? 10:04 a.m. with this marvelous microphone here, which I need to pull in just a little bit. Yeah, it got pushed back. There we go. And tilt it down a little bit. There we go. So now it's aimed at me. It's a very sensitive microphone, which I can show you. See, this gives you like two different. They don't recommend this. You hear how that is? It is really. If I put my hands on it, it is super sensitive. You're supposed to be, real close to that one. That's my background music, background microphone, which we're going to use this one because this one is aimed right at my schnozola, and so you can see this one, but it's not actually activated. In the world of audio engineering, only one mic per person, not two mics per person. Well, I noticed on the Will Kane show, he's got one of these now, with my red band on it. See it right there. And if I swing it back a little bit, I swing it right here is where it's supposed to be, about 2 inches from my schnozola, so you can hear all the deep sounds of my vocal cavity here. This is the same mic that Rush Limbaugh used, the Electro Voice Series 300. It is a very popular voice. You see, Will Kane show's got them. He got two of them. He's got one for his guest and one for himself, assuming he has a guest. And he has a lapel microphone like they have, when these people are sitting around the table on the 5. They don't have 5 microphones sitting in front of them. They all have lapel mics, which are hanging on their shirts, about 3 inches below their chin. Yeah, on their upper collar, is best. And so the audio engineers, which are sitting at the control panel with a bunch of these sliders like I got here, but they'd have 30 or 40 of them. And that's so in the world of audio engineering, you either have the boom mic running, or you have the lapel mic running. Like I would not run with this one on. It's off now, so you can't hear it. If I move the slider, you can hear. Even if I go like here, you can hear this way. And that's in case I turn away, you could hear that. But if I come back here, then you can't hear so much with this. So you could do that. And if I turn over here, then you hear with this microphone. And if I come back over here, you hear with this microphone. But I just turn that one off because I keep myself planted in this chair so you can hear me. It's like you're sitting at Denny's. You're sitting across the table from me, and anytime you want to say something, you can just call me on my cell phone, and I can put you right in the conversation. Or not. You can call me on a cell phone, and I have to have a private conversation with you. Howard G., where are you? Yeah, I figured. I think he was like a YouTube. I'm going to have to announce early next time on Facebook. Matter of fact, I think I'll post a still. I'll post a message on Facebook saying, "Watch me on YouTube." Yeah, not so much Facebook. They have bailed out on me all week. After about a minute and a half, they cut off, and I don't understand why. Maybe there's a data limit, and they have so much data on me that unless I upgrade my licensing requirements with Facebook. See, I'm a commercial client with Facebook. Not just a regular client, but a commercial client. You know what that means? I pay more. So if I pay a little more, then they carry Facebook Live, and I broadcast right into their servers in a simulcast along with YouTube Live. But apparently my YouTube Live, the bandwidth in YouTube Live is larger. And hopefully they keep taking my content, meaning YouTube Live. Hopefully they stay with me and don't charge me more, as I put on 1 to 3 hour broadcasts every day. It's 6 or 7 days a week. I mean, it's it could be as few as 5 days a week. I'm over 400 broadcasts. I've been saying that for a while, so it might be 475 broadcasts. I don't actually count them. Some of the TV channels actually number them. This is number 505, 506. They count them from the beginning of the year, and they follow, number 1 by number 2, and so forth. I'm not doing that. I put a date on each of them to make them unique, because you have a common name, and then you follow it by a digit or a date, or you could do both. So maybe I'll go figure out how many. I'll see if I can figure out how many broadcasts I actually have. YouTube, I probably have a better chance of figuring that out. So I'll figure out how many YouTube unique broadcasts I have, which is somewhere over 450 of them. And I'll come up with that number and write it down. And then when I post my very next broadcast, I will put that number and add one to it. And then I'll keep upping that number. So that way you can go back to broadcast number 579. Well, hey, next year it's going to be 500 and something. If it's said there are 270 5-day weeks. There's 270 days worth of 5 days a week. You can figure it out. You can divide 365. Do I really have to do it? Yeah, why not? Clear it, of course. And we have 365, and we're going to divide that by 5 days a week. 73. No. 365 days in a year. We're going to divide that by 52. That's 7. 365 divided by 12. No. 365 divided by 12 months a year. That's 30. There's 30.42 days in a week, in a month. Okay. So if there are 5 days in a week, 5 times 52. That's it. 52 weeks in a year, 5 days in a week. That's 260 work days in a week for regular time pay. Assuming you work 5 days a week. So if you work 5 days a week, and that equates to 260 days of regular time pay. Yeah. I'm just saying. So we're into Raptor engines. This is the configuration of number 8. And I was wondering if that's the same. That's probably the same configuration for this one. Or it's this one. 5 surrounded by 10, surrounded by 20. That'd be 35 Raptor engines. That'd be a few more engines. A little more power with these. Instead of just having 3, they'd have 5, on the larger gimbal sways, number of degrees of angle that they could rotate in. This looks like a better arrangement. I think in the early days they were wondering whether this whole configuration would just freaking blow up because there's so much power, in each of these Raptor engines. I mean, it's huge. There you go. Look how simple that is compared to that other picture I showed you. Look at that. Look at Raptor 1. And that's what it took. It had all these. Now, in all fairness, a lot of these, like these holes and compartments surrounded by, and then it goes into a wiring harness and all that. Those are actually taking temperatures and pressures. There's so many things flying around here that have to do with measuring the temperature and measuring the pressures inside the various chambers inside this sucker, because it was a test engine. Let's say everything's test. And once they used those engines for a while, they knew what the pressures and the temperatures should stabilize at. Well, after a while, you can get rid of some of that, because you don't need all this support crap, all the time, since the internal dimensions of that chamber are not changing. With this engine, Raptor 1, they could change they could go back and re-engineer that engine and change some slight changes to the actual dimension or the shape of the chamber itself. To me, it ought to be spherical with an open end at the bottom of the sphere to keep the pressures, relatively stable all around the outside edges. It's a special metal in that whole chamber, which is a super high temperature, high tensile strength, metallic metal alloy of some sort. Deep, dark inside. The engineering specifications of that engine is the actual alloy consistency. Well, I just lost. There we go. We just went to 1,000 pictures. No, we can't see those. There we go. Now we can see the 3 Raptor engines as they've gone through their. And now we've got the 1 Raptor engine stripping away all that test data. We don't want all that. We don't need it. There's a few little test things up around here measuring the speed and the rotation, of that turbine. And part of that, from, this could be right here, a control solenoid. This may be bleeding off some of the, it may be the other way. So inside where the hell is this? The chamber is right on the top here. So this may be feeding, the fan blades. And this is a turbine running right down through the middle of this sucker. Like a jet engine, except it's a rocket engine. So it's a super duper jet engine. It's got fins and everything. Now this is a little tiny jet engine in there that drives the bigger blades of the jet engine. And one is pumping fuel into that sucker. Yeah, at rapid rate. And you can see some of the fuel is coming around the upper parts of this Raptor bell, which heats up that fuel so that instead of it coming in at minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit, it gets warmed up to some higher temperature, literally higher, like maybe from minus 300 to like 0, or maybe 50 degrees. Would it go from minus 300 to plus 50? There's a 350 degree change in temperature, which means that liquid stuff is converting to a gas under incredible pressure. And then it flows inside the chamber of that jet engine, which is a rocket engine, and it explodes like crazy. And the explosive forces come out through this parabolical shaped parabola. A parabola in math? Parabolic. That is a parabolic shaped nozzle. And it's got a big nozzle because of its advantage in the vacuum of space. Whereas the engines that are used from the surface of the Earth up to around, 20 or 30 miles up, 100 miles up, you're getting up into like space. So right about where that one is, they cut the nozzle off right at the bottom of the one. You can just draw a line right through there, which I guess I could. I could do that myself. Right? Sure I could. Because I just do, oops, we don't want that. Let's put the black point in there. Darken that up just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to come over here and use the pen, and I'm just going to draw a line. Let's make it a blue line. There you go. And I'll just take that. No, that's too big. That's too big. I'm going to touch that pen, and I'm going to decrease the gauge of that, and then draw a fine line right across. Not that far. I'm using my finger. So my finger is a lot fatter than, there we go. And I'll stop right there. And then it becomes a straight line. There we go, that's perfect. And I'm going to be done. And then so now you can see kind of the magic of digital. So right about that fine line, they cut it off. So the bell doesn't go below that blue, the vacuum, the engines that are operating, at sea level up to 100 miles up. And you can see that. So I'm going to say done. So we have that new picture. What I should do is do a little trim on this, because I don't need all that white space above and below, right? There we go. That's better. Say done. Yeah, so now you got a full image and a full frame. That's about the aspect ratio of this iPad I'm holding in my hands, as you can see. And you can see the blue line I drew right underneath the one of that Raptor engine, which the engines that are operating at sea level do not have the bottom part of this bell. That's like out. Yeah. And you can see, you may be able to see that all these engines around the outside edge are all Raptor engines with the shorter bell. And the ones on the inside have the bigger bell. Let's see. It may not be eminently obvious from this picture either. You wouldn't think all these engines would be operating, because once they get up in the vacuum of space, then this booster's done its job, it's done. And it disconnects from the first stage and then returns to Earth with the burst back, maneuver, and comes back to Earth and gets caught by the calipers on the very top of this thing, which those calipers are essentially pinching the whole structure and holding it so that high winds or something doesn't blow it over. You wouldn't want to have a $10 million object sitting on top of a $20 million object, or $100 million, excuse me. That's $100 million below and $65 million above. So, $200 million if that thing falls over, and depending on whether it's full of fuel or not. There's 2 sets of fuel tanks in the bottom stage and 2 sets of fuel tanks in the top part. Liquid methane and liquid oxygen. They can create methane on the Mars planet because of the elemental materials and the atmosphere of Mars itself. You can manufacture methane, and they can manufacture oxygen, to create liquid oxygen under high pressure and chilling it and so forth. I mean, everything that you do on the surface of the planet Earth, you have to do on the surface of the planet Mars in order to create the fuel that's going to get pumped back into these things, for its takeoff. If they're going to be flying ships back and forth to Earth. So you just need enough, you need enough fuel to get it to take off, and to break loose of the Martian gravitational field, and then do an orbital thing and spin out and head over towards Earth, another planet in our solar system. And that is all coordinated, of course, with the geologists that, astronomical engineers, astronomy, our solar systems and all that. And it's traveling at a certain speed, rotating around the sun. And they put those factors into the equation. All using calculus equations. And they can coordinate, when there's a window, a short window every 2 years where the Earth and Mars are at closest distances, which takes, even at those closer distances, it still takes 5 or 6 months traveling at 30,000 feet per second, Mach 30 or 27. It's real fast compared to surface speeds around the Earth. Bullets on Earth, when you fire them, from a gun or rifle, travel, either a supercharged a plus P ammunition, when you fire ammunition out of a, depending on the ammunition and the weight of the number of grains in the bullet and all that, the muzzle velocity is, like 3,000 feet per second. When sound travels at, 1,100 feet per second, slightly less, 1050 actually. Let's just say 1,100 feet per second, You can do it. It's Mach 2.5 when you shoot a bullet out of a handgun. I have plus P 9mm ammunition sitting right below me, right on the floor in a case right below my feet. Yep. Let's see, is this the case? Oh, it's heavy. It's like, yep, this is it. This is the 9mm 115 grain ammunition, plus P. And if you look on the box, it says, let's see what it says. If I can open this up. It's heavy. Crap. You hear it clicking. Guns.com. There it is. There's a little bag of it right there. 9mm ammunition, little bag. This was taken out of a magazine, so I don't like having magazines that are full. Anyway, so if you look at one of these boxes, it's got 20 cartridges in this little box, which I'll show you if I can get inside of it. Double fingernail. Unbelievable. How difficult this is. There we go. It's got these little slits in here, and it hangs on to the edge of the so it won't pop open. There you go. There's 20 of these. These are all plus P's, and if you could. Actually, it's not in focus, but if you could see that, if it was in focus, it says plus P on it. Yep. Yeah. Put that back in there, and right on the outside edge of this sucker, there you go. This comes out, I don't know if you can actually see that, right below my nail. It says the muzzle velocity is 1,350 feet per second. So that is what's known as supersonic ammunition. You got subsonic and supersonic. And just close this sucker up. It's all like plastic, so it doesn't have a... It's not like mechanical hinges. It's all plastic. Everything's plastic. But that's, that's like 600 and... Gosh darn it. It weighs about 10 pounds, I can tell you that. It's like a 20-pound barbell plate. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 boxes. Okay. Do the math. 24 times 20. 480, 500 rounds. That's not even 1,000 rounds. That's 500 rounds of plus P. And those plus P's, they don't give away. I'd probably charge you, gosh darn it, 500 times 75 cents around. About $500 worth of information. $450, I got another case of, those are the 5.7 times 28 ammunition. What's this? It's here because I don't know where else to put it. Now it's 5.7 millimeter, so it's not 9 millimeter, because 9 millimeter is 9 millimeter. That's why they call it 9 millimeter. The diameter of that barrel on that handgun that ammunition works in is 9 millimeter. The diameter of this barrel, the core, where the rifling is 5.7 millimeters. And the bullet is, with the casing, is 28 millimeters tall. So I can open up this one. I have this taped right on the outside of it, so I know which one's which. Open this up. And I got a bunch of, so I've got 16 boxes of 50 cartridges. Let me go back to the math again. 16 times, we use this X times 50. 800 rounds in here. Woo! And these are these little, they're almost like 22 millimeter. Except, I don't know if you can see it. Let's stand it up right here. You can see that right there? It's 28 millimeters from the top of the tip to the bottom. The center fire, you can see the center fire. The firing pin hits that silver, bam! Explodes the rest of the gunpowder in this casing. The bullet goes this deep into where it's crimped. Whoops, you see the crimping. Yeah. I'm looking at the muzzle velocity. It shows it on this box. I can see it on my 40 grain bullet. I believe from reading the ballistics that with a 6-inch barrel, this comes out at 2,800 feet per second. So it's fast, super fast, light. It's only 40 grains. Doesn't have the muzzle velocity on the box. But reading the information with the handgun, I got a 6-inch barrel. And oops. The muzzle velocity is like almost 3,000 feet. I wish they had a rifle, an actual rifle with that. It has about the same energy and the same muzzle velocity as the what you call the 22 Magnum. Now that with a 6-inch barrel, comes out at like 28 feet per second. So if you shot that out of a rifle, with an 18-inch barrel instead of a 6-inch barrel, the muzzle velocity would be even higher because those gases are trapping and expanding, and there's still a huge amount of pressure as that bullet is traveling through the entire 18-inch barrel of a rifle. That would be a super speed. Yeah, that'd be a 3,200 feet per second, bullet traveling. So if you shot that into a jug of, a gallon jug of water, plastic, in the typical polyethylene jugs, it completely exploded. Which if it hit the head of an animal, it would explode the head. It pretty much, your shoulder explode your shoulder. Your shoulder would be inoperative. The entire mechanism of your shoulder would be completely disintegrated. So that ammunition I have with the rifling on the front barrel, so you can put a sound suppressor on it. I have a suppressor, and I had the gun shop that I deal with up on 40th Street of North Federal Highway, Boca Raton here. It's a Boca, gun shop, and they call the factory that makes, they called the factory that makes the silencer, and they asked the question, would the silencer operate, shooting this 5.7 millimeter, because 5.7 millimeters is smaller than 9, so it'll shoot right through the chambers of the silencer. And what would happen will the silencer operate at all? And they said it would. They said it wouldn't have quite the sound suppression as it would with a 9 millimeter, because in the 9 millimeter, it's shooting through a 9.5 millimeter silencer, so that so as the bullet passes through each of these chambers, it tends to baffle the sound. Whereas you don't quite have that same baffling when you've got let's just say a 6 millimeter projectile going through a 9.5 millimeter opening. So it wouldn't quite have the same, but it wouldn't, it wouldn't like blow it up or anything, because it'd travel clean through there, because, the threading is such that it's straight along with the barrel of a 9 millimeter. Surely the similar kind of a barrel shooting, with a threaded barrel. They use, that 28 threads per inch, half inch, half by 28. Same threading as in a 9 millimeter extended barrel. I try to buy all the handguns I own with an extended barrel, so I can screw my sound suppressor on it, which I have down here in another box. Yeah, I'm surrounded by ammunition, guns, and sound. It takes a frickin' year to get a sound suppressor through the ATF. Actually, you've got to get approved by the ATF. You get licensed through the ATF if you want a suppressor. And just a regular citizen, no pressure, whatever. Now, I knew, my daughter actually worked directly under, God darn it, the director of the ATF, Ken Melson. My daughter was the executive assistant with Ken Melson, and she traveled with him wherever the hell he traveled. She was right by his side. She had a clearance. She'd walk backwards through, the the systems that I have, set up in the commercial airports with controlling, and going through metal detectors and all that. Their clearance, they carry their bags, and they go straight through the gate, non-stop. They'd show their badges, their credentials, and they got through. Just like, I think a cabinet official, if you're the director of a cabinet, you go straight through. The TSA. So there are only 100 people on the planet that have that kind of, people, high-level people inside the Department of Justice have similar clearances that exempt them from TSA opening up their bags and all that stuff. No, not for Ken Melson and not for Rob. And at the time, Rob, I knew Ken Melson. I met him. How many regular people have met the director of the ATF? Now, I should have applied for, like a gun dealer license. And, he would have expedited it. I'd say, Robin, hey, I'm making an application to be a gun dealer down here, even though I'm not really going to do much of it. I just want the license. And then I could have bought all this stuff myself with very little, I'd be able to buy suppressors and all this kind of stuff without any, delay at all. As a regular person, it takes a year. But I probably could have gotten like that D3 license, the lowest level gun dealer license. And had my daughter Robin, expedite it through with their security clearances. But I didn't think of it, Instead, I didn't do that. I applied like a regular schmuck and took a year. So if I want to get another suppressor, like for a 45 ACP, I don't have a 45 ACP with an extended barrel. And I really don't shoot an ACP 45. It's it's a huge gun, huge projectile. So it's really a big blast. I'd rather have a slug traveling faster, because it would be more line of sight and it wouldn't be so much drop because of the weight of the bullet itself and the gravitational forces on it. So I'd rather have a plus P, a very high speed 115 grain bullet than a low speed, 280 grain bullet with a muzzle velocity of 900 feet per second instead of a muzzle velocity of 2,000 or 3,000 feet per second. And it's a more manageable shot. It doesn't have this huge recoil. It has a recoil, but nothing. ACP 45 is big recoil. You really need to have, good double-handed grip on an ACP 45. Unless you're a weight trainer or something. But for an 80-year-old guy trying to shoot an ACP 45, that's too much. Too much of a gun for 160-pound 80-year-old guy. I collect all this shit, but I don't shoot much of it. It's more the fun of owning it rather. And I have a rifle, a Winchester rifle. That's calibered for 9mm. So I have a shitload of 9mm ammunition, so I can shoot a rifle with 9mm ammunition. I have handguns with 9mm. So that way all the ammunition is the same, because it's so friggin' expensive. Except for this one gun I have, which is that 7.5 by 28. 7.5 millimeter by 28 cartridge. That's what they call it, 7.5 by 28. With an X. Whereas the other, the 9mm, the standard issue from NATO, 19x9. That's 9 millimeter by 19 millimeters. So the bullet is 19 millimeters tall and 9 millimeters in diameter. 9 by 19. That's why you see, 9x19. 9 by 19. 9 millimeters by. Now this other ammunition is 7.5 by 28. 7.5 by 28. Yeah. 7.5 millimeters in diameter and 28 millimeters tall cartridge. Everybody knows what that means. Now, it's a relatively new type of ammunition, super high speed. It comes in 3 or 4 different tips. I'm trying to think of the material of the tip. It's some kind of a polymer. And the more dense the polymer is, you got red tips, they got blue tips. This is blue tip ammunition. The red tips are armor piercing. And for general carry around ammunition, it's not legal because you're not allowed to. Because you could shoot at a police officer, heaven forbid, and it'd go right through his armor piercing vest. If you had a Velcro vest on, it'd go through it. It would pierce the yeah. So if you're in open warfare with a foreign militia and they're running around your city with Velcro on, this ammunition could go through it, depending on how dense the Velcro was. For most ammunition, it would stop it. But for this ammunition, with that poly tip on it, it might bust right through that. The manufacturer of the silencer said, it'd probably work. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. Because the ammunition has a smaller diameter than 9 millimeter. You may not have the same sound suppression characteristics, but it would suppress some of the sound, and it will retard the flash, so you wouldn't have the normal gun flash, because there's a flame that comes out the end of a gun. It's fast flame, but still, you shoot at night, you see the flame. But if you have a silencer on there, a noise suppressor, it tends to cover up the flame, so you see no flame, and you hear less. So if you're sideways to the shooting, you wouldn't see it and you wouldn't hear it, because there'd be no flame and there'd be very little sound, like half the sound. So if you're 1,000 feet away, you probably wouldn't see or hear much. And if you heard anything, it would sound like maybe a small firecracker somewhere, rather than the discharge of a handgun. Unless you had well-trained ears that knew what a suppressed 7.5 millimeter by 28. 5.7 times 28. So you got a 5.7 diameter cartridge running through a 9 millimeter opening. So you'd have less suppression. If the muzzle velocity was 2,000 feet per second. Supersonic for sure. And it comes out at 160 decibels of sound. You know, the explosion from the shot. That's usually 160, 170 decibels. You know, bigger bore ammunition has even louder decibels of sound, which is dangerous to your ears if you're near it without headphones like I'm wearing here. See these headphones? So if you had headphones on, over-the-ear headphones, that would shelter you from, 50 or 80 dBs of sound coming from the outside. Yeah, these are noise-canceling headphones, which I'm not sure how big the noise. I think I did bring these headphones in when I got my what do you call it? I took this class for concealed weapons carry. I have a concealed weapons permit, where I can carry around a concealed weapon, like in my pocket, undisclosed, in many states. Not Chicago, Illinois, not New York City, not New York, but most other states, all the southeast states. You have to check with each jurisdiction on whether you're capable of concealed carry. I have concealed carry license. I don't have it right here. It's in my little package of my 3-package thing that I carry. It's on the cocktail table in the living room because we got back from having breakfast yesterday morning. It was a holiday morning for Maryland. No banks are closed on Memorial Day. Memorializing our fallen soldiers around the world, and ever since our beginning, we celebrate Memorial Day. So we went to our, favorite breakfast spot and had breakfast. I had scrambled eggs. I pour a little au jus, the au jus that you get when you have a brisket. I get a little container of that, and I pour that over my scrambled eggs. And it makes for a totally different scrambled egg, I'm telling you. Put it lightly salted. You sprinkle the au jus all over the scrambled eggs. I mean, it looks, because it's like a thin brown gravy, beef gravy type thing, the au jus. And you're pouring that on your scrambled eggs, so it looks like, I don't know what it looks like, but it looks terrible. When you have yellow eggs, scrambled eggs, and you pour a light brown consommé on top of your eggs. If you've ever heard of consommé soup, that's au jus gravy. It's the same as consommé, Campbell soup consommé. I'm sure they still sell that. Let's see. Let's go to Netflix. I'm sorry, Amazon. Flakowitz. That's where we have our. Let's see. Consommé. CONSUM. Probably 2 M's. Consommé. Beef consommé. There you go. Beef. There it is. Yeah, there it is. Beef with vegetables and barley. Nah, that's soup. And then you got minestrone. Come on. Now, There we go, beef consomme. That's it right there. $29 for how much? It is, Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. 6 cans. Three times. A pack of 6. Phew. Terrible. No, that's it. Beef consomme. With beans and bacon, no. It's interesting that the beef consomme by itself is super expensive. It's like beef stock. Swanson beef stock. That'd be similar, to what I'm getting at. I could bring this along with me and put it in a little container if I had a little container. Putting it in a little bag and save $2.50. But that beef stock, it's a little more. See, beef stock, dehydrated, concentrated beef stock, yeast extract, natural flavoring, onion juice concentrate, a little cane sugar in there. Beef fat, a little bit of that in there, and a little tomato paste. Adds a trivial amount of fat. There you go. That's exactly what that beef pork. So you can get a quart of that. Let's see. 2 32-ounce cartons of that for the bundle is $7.70. Well, that's the way to buy that, because beef concentrated beef stock as opposed to beef broth, which is even a thinner. This is what you'd want. You'd want this beef stock. That's probably what they're making it from. They get this Swanson beef stock. They get the mega. There's a big fat box of it. Here it is, beef stock. Yeah, that's like how many ounces? They're out of stock of this. That's a 48 ounce instead of a 32 ounce. So that's like a quart and a half per container. They don't give you the price because they don't carry it anymore. Bone broth, no. Come on. This is it right here. That is the item. Mm-hmm. Let me put that in my cart. Add to cart. Mm-hmm. That would be the almost the equivalent of the didn't we look at the contents? No. I don't know what did I add to my cart? Oh yeah, the beef stock. Let's look at the picture again. There's a bigger one. Yeah, beef stock. Beef stock extract. Okay. And let's look at the Oops, beef consomme. Campbell's beef consomme. There we go, right here. Beef consomme. Ingredients. Thank you very much. Oh my God. Beef stock contains less than 2% of gelatin, beef extract, soy, a little soy sauce in there, soybean, salt, hydrolyzed wheat, gluten, caramel color, hydrolyzed soy protein, citric acid, carrots, natural flavoring, beef stock, potato, flour, onions, celery, dried beef, whatever. That's everything that's in consomme. Which you pour over beefy kinds of stuff, like with rice. You just pour a little beef consomme in there. It has a little tinge of, come to think of it, a little tinge of, the soy sauce. Let's do French onion soup. Let's see if we can find out what's in the ingredients of French beef stock. Yeah, onions, water, dried onions. So here, this is French onion soup made with beef stock. Yeah, that's almost the same as a consomme. Monosodium glutamate. Yeah, there's a little soy sauce in this also. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a little bit of soy in there too. I like the soy flavor, actually. So this is French onion without the onions. This is a clear broth. Campbell's condensed French onion soup. I wonder if it's got onions in it. I guess it does. It's floating around in there. I'll add that to the cart too. I'll end up saving that for later. Because I don't really want all this stuff. It's just I don't want to have to look it up again. This right here. Phew. It's 12 cans. Package of 12 10-ounce. I don't know. I want 12 of those suckers. It's and $1.50 a can. Beef consomme. And this is a package of 6 10-ounce cans. It's $29. Yeah, that's real expensive. Yeah, I think what's in my French onion soup, we're going to save that for later. So the beef stock, that's the way to go. Yeah. I'll save that for later also. But there it is, anyway. I got a lot of things in save. But see, then I can just move it to cart and boom, I got it. Without having to go through all this search business. I'm a big believer in Amazon.com. Oh my God. Bezos has made a fortune with Amazon.com. There was a time, and I was standing there on my computer I remember talking to some people in the Southern Security Bank, not to be confused with the Southern Security Bank Corp, which we created. This was Security Bank. I'm sorry. This was Security Bank. I was working for the Security Bank as the chief credit officer and a senior lending officer of this bank that had a terrible portfolio, but they didn't know it until I went through it and sat with the chairman of the board and said, hey, this portfolio is seriously terrible, and you're gonna have to raise a lot of millions of dollars to keep writing off these loans. The regulators haven't found them yet, but I have, and here's a list of them. This is a private list, and everyone that I show here as substandard is really doubtful or loss, but I'm just marking them as substandard. And the regulators, they see some of them, they don't see others. I don't know, they just don't know enough about lending. But I can tell you, these are El Stinko. you know, you're not going to like what's going to happen. Now, you know, in 6 months from now, when the regulators take another look through, some of these will move down to doubtful and loss. And then 6 months later, another bunch of these are going to move into doubtful and loss. And I'm telling you, they're all going to grind through into doubtful or loss. So just heads up. That's not a popular thing for someone to say. You know, you can get rid of me and you can get another senior credit officer, and he may not tell you what I'm now telling you. But you save my list, and you can decide which directors you want to share this with. And I'd be happy to go through them with some of your select directors. I wouldn't want to make it a board meeting, because then you'd have to put this list, you know, in the official minutes, and the regulators read official minutes. So this is like off the record private meeting with select directors. You can call that whatever you want, and I'm not in charge of your directors. I'm just telling you, and you got 50 loans that are terrible. And whoever advised you into buying this bank gave you bad advice. Because this, and I know Floyd Harper has been wanting me to buy this bank for years, and I wouldn't hear of it, because I know who runs the bank, and I know the portfolio is going to be terrible, you know, and it is. Now that I'm inside the bank, and I'm advising you, I'm telling you that this portfolio is terrible, and you're going to lose, you know, if you decide to keep this bank, you know, you're going to be in the hole for over $15 million before you start making a profit. I'm just saying, which that's quite a price to pay. You know, you save the regulators money because you put in capital, which will be used up. You know, one thing about putting in capital, you can't take it out. You know, you can't dividend it out. I'll tell you, you'd have to dividend it out to all the shareholders. And when a director throws money in to the capital of the bank, and the way he gets it out is by dividending out to every shareholder, including him. And unless he owns all the stock in the bank, he will be diluted in the way in which he gets the capital back by every other shareholder. So that's not a good way. Anyway, the bank experienced everything that I'm saying, and they ultimately had to sell the bank to someone else, you know, at a huge discount. and, saved 20 or 30% of their capital, but lost 75% of their capital. So it wasn't a good thing. I forget who they sold to, but it was an arranged transaction by the regulators. So someone else absorbed the losses that the Security Bank shareholders tried to preserve. And I told them years before, I said, it isn't going to happen. This is not a good purchase. Unless you were on the end of the assisted merger, where the people that put the capital in, basically got 5% of the bank, and they got written off 95% of their capital. And the bigger bank, took over the smaller bank, and they would have to experience, it would wipe out all the capital that they acquired, essentially, and a little of their own. But it was a little of their own, not all of their own. The original, those people that bought that bank essentially lost all the money they put in. Unless they're willing to, double up on that capital to keep it alive themselves without a merger. And that's the kind of thing, when you raise $7 million to take an acquisition of a bank, and then you got to put another $7 million in to keep it alive, for a total of $14 million. That's quite a pill to swallow. Yeah. And that was not written in the handbook. You're going to put in $7 million, but we're going to have to come back to you for another 10. Yeah. That's about what it would have taken for Security Bank. Terrible, terrible purchase. And then Floyd stuck it up my ass because he didn't give me credit for a lot of things that I did. He took credit for things that I did, which annoyed me. That's silly crap. I wrote this huge, I think, word perfect back in those days. The regulators wrote us a definitive agreement, and we had to follow through with all these steps in the portfolio. So I went through every paragraph of the definitive agreement and called it, 1 through 10 Roman numerals, and 10 through 20 Roman numerals, and I had it in like 7-point type, each little sentence. And then we'd have our answers. And it was in like 11-point type. So you'd have the little type of theirs and the big type of our answer. And then the little type of the second one, and then our answer. And it went through the whole thing. And so the first one was the toughest one, to create this huge template. And every time we'd answer that letter, which was like every 90 days or so, I think every 90 days we'd have to update that, every item on there. Well, when you go through the second time, you've already got the answer from the first time. So you modify that answer a little bit, or you leave the answer the same. And you just go down carefully through each item of the 40 or 50 paragraphs in that letter. And so Lloyd said that, he told, the vice chairman of the board, well, I put that together. Oh, bullshit, he didn't put that together. I did it. And then after I did the first one, I gave it to him, do the second one, third one, and fourth one, and so forth. But I did the original template for that goddamn thing. And he said it was his. I mean, it's just stupid crap, but it just annoyed me. Anyone with half a brain knew that he was not the architect behind. I didn't want to buy that bank. I refused to buy that bank, Security Bank. So that was Lloyd's baby, and he convinced several members of the board to buy this bank because they were out hunting for a bank. They said, "Well, how about this one?" So they pushed it through for themselves, And, they didn't have anybody go through the portfolio like I would have gone through that portfolio. Because I'm a chief credit officer, I'm a senior lending officer, moreover, and when I took over the position of chief credit officer and senior lending, I had to hire a really, really good credit guy, and I did. And the two of us ran the credit department. I was like in charge, but he was, he was, more detailed, and he was a serious credit guy, of the highest level. I relied on him heavily, and he knew it. I hired him in. I told him exactly what I was doing, that I was a really good senior lending officer, and I'm a half-assed credit officer. I'm good. I'm better than any, but I'm not as good as you are. And that's why I want to hire you. And I hope you accept my offer. And he did. And we worked. John Wheeler, outstanding credit person. Now he probably is not a real good senior lending officer. I was a really good senior lending officer, and a half a credit officer. John Wheeler was super fine credit officer. And he and I worked beautifully together. I got him so he was more comfortable, speaking to the whole loan committee and occasionally speaking to the whole board of directors. He was a little, nervous about doing that. So I would handle that in front of the board just so he wouldn't get stressed out over it. I mean, some guys really get stressed out and they're throwing up in the morning and all this before the board meetings. I was fine standing in front of 20 of my peers, if you will, who are 15 or 18, board members that are sweating it out because they want me to say good things, and I can say a few good things and too many bad things about the operating of the bank. It's not the operators, it was just a terrible portfolio. And they did not do the proper due diligence on that portfolio. They all got fooled. It's not like, Floyd Harper and the various people, the original board members that, did the job of buying the bank. They, as a group, did not have the horsepower that you needed to evaluate that portfolio. They took the evaluation of the prior administration, and it was, these guys were lying to each other. The credit team of the bank that originated those loans were not telling, I hate to say it this way, but they were not telling the truth, if you will, to the board of directors. They either didn't know or they were hiding it. Either way, I don't care. I'll just say they didn't know better. So I'm not going to say lying, because lying assumes that you know. I don't think they realized how bad the portfolio was. And they didn't have anybody underneath them bringing up the information so that the senior people that are reporting to the board would know what's going on with that portfolio. Now, when they hired me, they already bought the bank. And they knew they needed my horsepower to run the bank they acquired. But unfortunately, they acquired the bank. They should have brought me in on the pre-acquisition team, And if we decide to buy the bank, you can head up lending or whatever. You pick your title. But they didn't do that. They relied on people that knew of the bank, which is different than being inside and evaluate. And they went inside and they looked and they went through to touch the papers, and they basically verified out what the you have the acquirer, right? And you got the acquiree. So let's say the credit people of the acquiree were giving, the buyers of the bank information as well as they knew it. But unfortunately, that wasn't good enough because the portfolio was flashing red disaster, and the acquirees' loan administrators didn't know. They didn't know any better. That's all. That's all I can say. And turned out to be a serious loss. So the acquirer, they end up getting acquired by somebody else, and they took a dilution. So they lost, some big chunk of the capital they put in the bank. And maybe 10 years later, they break even. Or not. I don't know. Oh, look at this Pete's Bill speaker. Oh, yeah. I have one of these. That's in black. Yeah, let's take a look at that one, yeah. And go through the pictures. Yeah, it's quite a portable. You connect it either with a wire or Bluetooth. You charge it with the wire like that. So if you plug it in like that, it's charging. Yeah, 24-hour battery, lithium-ion battery. This is like a second or third generation version of this thing. You can sync two pill speakers, so you got a left channel and a right channel. So this is Beats, but Beats was bought by Apple. And I guess you can get Apple Care on it. The only thing that would go bad with something like that is the speakers might get noisy because of moisture or something, and they get warped, and the sound doesn't come out as good as it's supposed to. Or the lithium battery poops. But I think the battery, I've got one that's 5 or 6 years old. It's still running fine.
It's 11:30.
The exterior of the case is a little beat up, but what do you expect? That's it right there. It's about 10 or 11 inches wide and stands up like 3 inches. Tubular look, just very much like what you see there. Best of 25 says Gizmodo. Wired likes it. Jimmy likes it. That's a good picture of giving you an idea of its size. There should be some dimensions there somewhere. They don't actually give physical dimensions. Maybe in the dialogue it does. That's it right there. Add to cart. Oh yeah, here's Apple Care. Let's see what it costs at Apple Care. $128 with the bundle. That's for 2 years. So it costs you $14 a year, including Apple Care, from Amazon. My personal experience would be, I'd rather buy it without Apple Care for $100. And as soon as you buy it, when you log in and you show it as an Apple product on your list of products that you own, add the Apple Care to your brand new purchase. And you can You can pay annually, or you can pay, the 2 years worth up front, or you can pay a monthly charge. Yeah. Customers usually keep this item. Yeah. Interesting how they put that kind of a notation. I've seen that notation. I've seen it in red, too, where it says customers usually return this item. Pill and power adapter. What does that cost? It costs you $14 for the power adapter. What's that look like? Do we have pictures of the power adapter? I don't remember seeing anything about a power adapter. You can just plug it in. It's got a USB-C, and I imagine you could just plug that into your, the power thing that you use for your iPhone. I don't think you need to pay for a separate adapter. It's the same plug. They don't have a separate. I don't think they have a separate hole in there to plug in something else. It all probably goes right in through the USB-C. They don't. The thing cannot be shipped to your present location. Is it only available out of country or something? This one is available in black without anything. But if you try to add the power adapter, it said item cannot be shipped to your selected delivery address, which is Boca Raton. You have to have a separate. That's fine. We'll just get the pill. And that has no such notation other than free delivery. I can have it Sunday. Yeah. Just need to fork over $100 and you got one. Maximum power output, 100 watts. That's pretty dramatic out of that little sucker. There's a USB-C cable. It has a water resistance rating of IP67, which I think means it can be caught in the rain and it won't get killed. I would not leave it out in the rain. And you set it up Bluetooth with your iPhone or your iPad. And if you're watching a movie or something, you could have that pill behind your iPad, and you'd have some pretty dramatic sound coming out of that puppy. Yeah, I have an old one behind here. I've always threatened to update it. Would I get a red one? I don't think so. I think I'd stick with black. I've added that to the cart already, I believe. I think I'm looking at stuff in my cart. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Except I have one that doesn't have the B on it for Beats. So Beats apparently bought the whole device, from whoever made it. I don't know if that was always a Beats thing. I don't know what kind of thing there is in the front of there on the one I have back behind my soundboard. Behind my Rodecaster Pro Roman numeral 2. An unbelievable soundboard. Yeah. All right, it's 11:30. I've been on here since 9:03. And you can see the elapsed time indicator of 2 hours, 30 minutes. That's about enough, don't you think? I think so. Anyway, I put several interesting things in my... yeah, look at that. Let's see if we go through this general Q&A here. Charge. Let's see anything about charging. This is how you pair it. Okay, that's good. How do I pair multiple speakers? Okay. How long does the battery life last? Okay. 10-minute fast fuel changing. You charge it for 10 minutes and it gives it 5 more hours to play. That's pretty good. You push a button and it tells you the state of charge of the battery. But they don't tell you anything about the charger itself. You would think they would tell you you can charge your speakers. You can charge your speaker with a standard USB to USB-C cable. And you just plug it into, I guess, a 5-volt charger, similar to the what you find in your basic iPhone charger. Yeah, they don't go into a lot of the charger. They don't show you a picture of a charger. Of course, this is the speaker-only version. This is some pictures of how it arrives. This is a red one. Beats pill. Beats pill. They package it well. What the heck is this? All right. Someone left it out in the snow. These are all the pictures that people took. That's the red one. I think we'll stick with black. Seriously. Here's the different controls that it has. If we could actually see that picture bigger. Yeah, that one over there is volume up, volume down. That middle one turns it on, or you can touch it for the picture is like upside down. You got this is the thing that they have on it, the device. Power. So this button all the way to the right, you hold it down, it turns it on. And then the buttons on the very left is volume up, volume down. And then this button in the middle then communicates with your iPhone, for example, and would go to the next soundtrack, assuming you had more than one. Yeah. There you go. So here, this guy's got 2 of them, Bluetooth to his iPad, iMac. And when he plays those speakers, he gets stereo sound with his MacBook. That's how it's packaged with the black one. Black, red. That gives you an idea of the size of it. It's a marvelously sounding device, I will say. I don't think they had to engineer much on the inside. When they I assume they took over somebody that actually created this device. I don't think when I bought it had anything to do with pill, but it's the identical thing. Yeah, see, here are the buttons on the top of this cream colored one. Anyway, enough of that. If you want a little speaker that you want to run your iPhone or your iPad off of for a nice good sound, you put it right behind you, on a credenza thing. It gives really good sound, like in your office when it's on your desk facing you. It's not the kind of a huge speaker that you would try to fill up a whole room with sound. Although for, just background sound, you could hear it just fine. You could put it in the kitchen and, fill up the kitchen and give you really good sound in your kitchen. But a huge living room, and you have one on the left and one on the right as added speakers to your big screen TV, no, this wouldn't be enough. It would be better than the speakers that are inside your TV, for sure. So it'd be better than that, but not, super powerful. I don't have super powerful, but I have really good speakers on the left and right side of my big screen TV. Yeah, I do. I must say. All right, so we're just going to close that out. And I'm going to go back to Amazon and see. Yep, I never had search BEATSPILL Beats Pill Bluetooth speaker. There it is. Then I'm going to add that one to the cart. Okay. And then I'm going to save for later. There we go. I forgot to do that. So I don't have to look that up again. All right, so listen, you guys have a great day. It's Tuesday. Tomorrow I have my housekeeper coming at, let's see if she answered me. Known senders only. Dr. Thomas Lubin says, I have another prescription ready. And my housekeeper says, good morning, yes, see you tomorrow. I will just give her a double check mark back. Let her know I got her message. And let me go to, I'll have to do that on my phone. I don't think, do I have a Publix Publix? Come on, boy. P-U. Publix Pharmacy, yes. That's what I want. I don't want to call them. This looks, I don't know, what is this? No. Alright, this is just their, they just sent me something on Saturday. Oh, here, look at this. It opened up the app. How nice. Let's see what the prescription is. Recent prescriptions, I don't think there's anything added to that. Alright. We'll deal with my prescriptions on my own. So I'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 sharp, because at 10:30 I got to jump off and prepare this place for the housekeepers, which means assemble all my trash. Yeah. Other than that, you all have a great day, and what I need to do is get back to this one right here, because I have to end with this, with my Epidemic Sound instrumental, which is my royalty-free background music, which I've been using for years and years. Because I listen to other podcasts from other people, and they had background. As a matter of fact, one of them had this background music, and he was a podcaster that is probably still doing stuff for sure, testing a lot of other equipment. He introduced me to the Rodecaster because he was using Rodecaster Pro. So I decided, $550 item sounds good to me. You know, you got to control your audio somehow. And you can buy a bunch of little pieces, cost you $400. So you might as well pay $500 and get it all built into the Soundcaster Pro, Roman numeral 2. You can get the Rodecaster Duo, which just has 2 channels up top here instead of 4. So if you're not really going to have more than 2 microphones running at a time, the Rodecaster Duo, which was just released a few months ago, which has all the all the special amplifier capabilities, and you have your sound, that kind of sound that comes in. Or if no one's talking to you, you hear the crickets. Yeah. Or I have the crowd that's sitting behind in there. Hey, shut the door, please. There we go. Yeah. That's about the only... Silencer Co. is returning to Oklahoma, according to this message I got here. What does that say? Just reading a fast message that came through on my device. Let's see if we have any. The Dow is up 590 points so far to 42,194, and the Nasdaq is at 19,001. Apple is up 4 to 199. Temperature outside is 84 degrees. It's supposed to have a high of 85 and a low of 82. With that good note, we'll say goodbye for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay? May your Dow Jones always be rising.